All right, guys, welcome to this pure value bomb of sales information. Everything that I've learned from building 3 7-figure businesses in like the last, 4 years, which have really all grown as a byproduct of getting really good at sales. I'm actually in the process of building my fourth in the last 4 years. And I feel like sales is one of the backbones of the things that I hate to say mastered, but one of the things that I've cracked the code on. Now, obviously, if you're watching this video, you're probably a land investor, right? I'm chilling here with a cigar. We're going to dive in. Now, it's going to cover land, but I certainly will go outside of land and it will serve you in every area of your life. Hell, maybe it'll even serve you in your relationships and your friendships beyond just having the sales ability to make money. Sales is kind of encoded in everything that we do as a human. Now, why am I shirtless? Well, I'm shirtless because I actually caught flack on the last video and I need to make a point. One, I don't give a crap about what you think of me wearing a shirt or not wearing a shirt. In fact, I'm wearing a shirt here today because it's what I want to do. And I'm also doing it to prove a point. The point that I want to prove is someone mentioned this. It's something, why are you trying to make course sales and yet you're not wearing a shirt? I said, my friend, you got it so backwards. I don't care about your money. I don't care about making course sales. Frankly, like if that means having to trade off who I am as a person to make a buck, I'm playing the wrong game. I really am playing the wrong game. And I just don't care. I really just don't care. If I make less money from Leah because I'm shirtless, whatever. I think that's one of the fortunate situations I found myself in. It's like I make money other ways. Like literally, I can be whoever I want, and if that hurts revenue, so be it. I don't care. You'll never catch me trading who I am as a person to make a buck. And this is what people get wrong about making money. You make money so you don't have to make stupid trade-offs like that. So you don't have to go to work and wear a suit and tie because it's not you. You don't like it. So you don't have to suck up to people that you don't respect. Like you make money to free yourself from those shackles, yet people, they forget that. They make money and they want to make more money. So they try to appease more people. Say, no, you're making the wrong trade there. I make money to be free as all hell. How might I start doing these calls naked? I don't know. YouTube probably won't like that, but that's why I'm shirtless. I'll probably continue to be shirtless. That's why I'm smoking a cigar. Frankly, I've probably been smoking too many cigars for these damn videos, but I've gotten a lot of really positive feedback and it means the world, guys. Seriously, thank you. If you guys like this format, give it some love, a thumbs up, a comment, something just to let me know. Before we dive into the sales wisdom, you guys may or may not know, you probably know, but maybe you don't. We are hosting our biggest event ever in Las Vegas. It's October 12th and 13th for general admission. It's the 11th for VIPs, but we've sold out of VIP tickets 2 times over again. So 12th and 13th in Las Vegas. It's going to be absolutely unreal. We're almost sold out. We've sold out of the VIP. We're selling out of the general admission. I'll put the link down below, landinvestor.co/mastermind. It's $299. Okay. I don't care if you're extremely advanced, extremely seasoned in land, or if you haven't even done a land deal. It will be the best $299 you spend. Whether it's from the education of the lineup of guest speakers, which are frankly world-class, or if it's just the friends that you make, it's the funding relationships that you make, or it's the inspiration that you make because you meet folks that are doing 300, 400, 500K a month. You say they're no different than me. And there's something about that kind of 4-minute mile syndrome where you're like, I think I'm just as good as you. Maybe I'm better. Hell, maybe I've got more skills. Maybe I got more tenacity, yet you're outpacing me. So what do you know that I don't know? And sometimes it's just they believe in themselves a bit more than you do. So that's the lowdown there. I'm going to keep this cigar puffing in the background. So if I pause for a minute, I apologize. It keeps on going out because I'm not smoking it. So yeah, I've got a little bit of a cigar thing going on here in Bali. They're too cheap. They're too convenient. And I've probably been smoking too many of them. Honestly, my throat kind of hurts. It's probably my last one for a while. Anyways, guys, sales dojo, sales explosion, whatever you want to call it. Let's dive into it. And honestly, I'm just going to go off the top of my head. And I think about sales all day, every day. And really a lot of what I do in the businesses that I'm a part of nowadays is I train sales, I build sales teams, I help with our sales team. Like that's where I spend a lot of my time. And I think it's a really, really high value skill to develop. And in fact, I think in most businesses, like if you're a founder, you're either highly technical or you're sales driven. And so if you're a founder and you're a CEO, like you need to figure out where are you on that map, and you probably need to double down and really develop that skill set. And part of the reason that I keep on building businesses is because I find folks that have complementary or have like the yin yang skill set to me, and they can go run point on what they're good at, and I can run point on what I'm good at. And so you can either combine forces with folks, or you can eventually build team members that kind of fill the void. But in the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey, you need to figure out where are you on that map. Now, I'd say most entrepreneurs are on the sales side. And that's why entrepreneurs are able to build things where other people might not be able to. And so you're either highly technical or you're sales related. That's my strong belief. Now, inside of land, we see that play out in two different ways. Okay. There's folks that come into Leah. I'd say about 30% of them aren't very good at sales, but they're pretty damn good at like the data side, the picking the markets, the pricing the market. So they're technical. On the flip side, we got folks that come in that are not good at that, and they're great at sales. And I would say in land, the great at sales part will actually take you further faster in the beginning than being highly technical, but it depends on the business. So you guys know we started a business a year ago called Land Insights. It's a SaaS app for land investors. I don't care how good you are at sales, you couldn't build that business without a kind of a technical counterpart. So it really depends. But I think in land, the primary skill set to develop out of the gate is being amazing at sales. So what we're going to cover here today, we'll talk about land, but it'll also kind of be from a higher level. Okay. Now I've got a really simple formula that I use to think about sales. Now, the funny thing is I don't have any sales like technical training. Like this has literally just come by trial and fire. Like collectively, the businesses that I'm a part of, we've probably taken 5,000 or maybe even more scheduled sales calls. And so I just have a lot of experience in what that looks like. So there's kind of like a general flow that I think about for all conversations. Now, you can't just take this and run with it and have it all figured out, but I think about calls in terms of frameworks, not so much scripts. I think if you're using a script for sales, you should probably ditch that. You know, a script for cold calling is the one place where I see that being relevant because you've got such a short window to make your message stick that I think you want the most kind of like distilled down to its core essence message because you've got such a finite window to like get your message out. But for typical sales, we want to think about frameworks and less so of scripts. Okay. So the typical framework that I think for any sales conversation, I think intro, I think setting the frame, I think pleasure, I think pain, I think tie-in, I think open the floor, and I think future casting. Okay. So there's 7 key things that I try to design all sales conversations just kind of around that. Okay. So let's double click on that. And then I'm going to extend out and branch out upon many, many other frameworks. So stick around to the end because honestly, again, this is not enough to go and solve your sales problems. So intro, right? Energy is frankly is contagious. And what I found is that most human beings are operating at a pretty low frequency. And so when I am trying to present an opportunity to someone or pitch someone something, like the first thing that I need to do is transfer my energy to them. I need them to feel good when they're around me. I need them to be like, damn, this has actually like changed my mood a bit, or damn, now I'm more excited about whatever they're delivering. Like you've got to bring energy to the call and it's got to be contagious. And you've got to understand that like it sounds cheesy, but vibrating at a higher frequency, people will naturally just gravitate towards you. Okay. And so before we get into sales and the techniques, I also think that you have to become the kind of person where people actually want to do business with you, whether you're the founder or the salesperson. It's like you can have a great offer. Okay. You can have a slam dunk offer. And sure, a slam dunk offer will kind of sell itself. But I also feel like you're running with a parachute against you. If the person doesn't respect you, maybe admire you a little bit, maybe look up to you, maybe just enjoy your presence, it becomes infinitely more difficult to sell anything that you're trying to sell. And I see this inside of land, right? There are sellers that will turn away doing business with someone because the vibe ain't right. You might even be offering them their number. Something's just not resonating, especially as we get into the higher price point properties. They're not just thinking about price. They're thinking about, do I want to do business with this person? Do I like this person? Do I trust this person? Are they going to take care of my property? They're going to take care of my legacy. And I think that carries over to anything that you're selling, product or service, or trying to buy land from someone. Like you've got to become the kind of person that people actually want to do business with. I think that's a really, really big deal. So that's part of how we show up on the call, but it's also who you are outside of the call, right? Part of the reason that like if I were to get on calls for folks that are looking to join Leah, part of the reason that I would have a higher close rate than just like a Joe Blow salesperson is because, well, people might say, I like this guy. I've watched his content, or I think there's pieces of him that are aspirational or whatever. But anyone can create that, and you can create that on the macro. So you can create that in terms of building a brand and having awareness before people get on a sales call with you. You can also do that on the micro, though. Before I had any reputation, I would get on these calls and people would just be like, dude, I just like talking to you, right? And it's not because I'm special, but I was aware of, I need to bring energy to this person that's going to transfer to them. And I need them to leave this call in a better state than where they started, okay? So how do we do that from the technical? I bring excitement and genuine joy to the call, right? Before I'm kind of hyping myself up, I'm excited. When I come to that call, I'm genuine. I'm not over the top. If you're over the top, you will repel people. Like they'll think you have an agenda. So I try to keep it based in reality, like just being genuinely like, I'm actually excited for this and reframing it, but not getting so overhyped. It's a low value behavior to come to a call where you're like too eager. People don't like that. And one of the biggest things in sales is the nonverbal. Now, if you're in person, body language and all that stuff, and even through Zoom, people can feel your body language. But mainly if you're taking calls or on Zoom, it's really the tonality and the speed at which you talk and kind of how you, well, I guess just tonality ultimately. A lot of nonverbal communication is going to be passed off through there. And there's little triggers and signals to humans when someone's too eager or too excited, it actually repels them. It scares them off. So you got to be careful. You don't want to take it too far. Sorry, guys. There's some loud noise in the background. Hopefully you guys can still hear. So really, really important that we were based in reality, not over the top. A smile. And even if they can't see my face, I'm still going to smile on that call. The next thing is I'm looking to engineer some form of genuine small talk, right? Now, again, it's got to be based in reality. I'm never going to ask them, is your day going well? How's your day going? It's like, no. Try to actually make it relevant to that person. So it's like, hey, where are you tuning in from? Where are you calling from? Oh, I'm in Midland, Texas. Oh, dude, I did a road trip there as a kid. Such a funny place, man. Kind of the middle of nowhere out there. Do you like living out there? Yeah, it's okay. How'd you end up out there? Well, I moved out here after college because I met a girl or whatever. All right, guys, sorry about that. I had to pause for a second. It was super, super loud. Anyways, back to what we were talking about, right? We don't want to come in too hot and heavy, parts of the ground in reality. Call it something interesting in their background if you're on a Zoom call or what have you, or you can hear a dog barking in the background, like make it relevant to them. And again, it's about being genuine. Don't ask canned questions. Don't come with this canned like ungrounded energy. But make sure that you're really there. You're present. You're asking good questions. You're passing off energy that again is grounded in reality, but is bringing excitement and joy to someone. Okay. The next is setting the frame. I'm never going to jump into a pitch. I'm never going to jump into the call without first getting them to buy into the frame and being really clear. This is what we're going to cover. Again, I do this on every single call. Even when I'm just talking to my team, I let them know this is the frame of the call. So I'm going to cover the outline from the call, kind of the 30,000 foot view. We're going to figure out where you're at, where you're hoping to go, and see if we can help. It's one of my favorite phrases. And then we're going to let them know, hey, questions can be answered asked at the end. But first, I'm going to pepper you with questions. And that leads me to one of the most important points in sales. Sales is really a game of asking the right questions and then shooting your shot if it makes sense. I used to have a kind of a mentor who taught me sales and taught me a lot of things about business. And he used to say, shoot or shoot, right? A lot of times folks can set up the perfect frame. You can ask all the right questions. The person's kind of foaming at the mouth, ready to get started, and you don't shoot your shot. But a lot of folks get into this pitch mode and there's not enough questions and they're just pitching. Like it's about that right balance. I really think about calls in terms of the 70-30 ratio, 30% us talking, 70% them talking. And when we're talking, we're mainly lobbing good questions to them, helping connect dots, and then we're shooting our shot if it makes sense. One of the worst things that you can do is if you look at any sales call that you have, if you are the one that's at the majority of the talk time, that's a bad call in my opinion. It's a really bad call in my opinion. So really, really important that we are setting the frame, letting them know in the beginning, I'm actually going to be peppering you with questions. And I actually don't want them peppering me with questions out of the gate because now I'm in their frame. And now that talk time is going to be all discombobulated, right? So it's really important that we let them know. And so there's kind of like, hey, I'm going to be in interrogation mode and we'll flip flop and reverse roles. Okay. And then the next thing is we think about every single call in terms of like a pleasure pain dynamic, right? Whether you're selling a product or service, you're trying to buy land from someone, there's always a future vision, like the pleasure that someone's chasing, and there's pain that they're trying to avoid. It's that simple. And if that doesn't exist, well, there's probably nothing that you can do to help serve that person. So I'm trying to glean that out. It's not, why are you interested in selling your property? They say, well, I want to make money. I want to liquidate it. It's like, let's dig a layer deeper. So the first thing I want to figure out is like, what's the pleasure? What are you looking to achieve by selling this property? What's the vision that you have for selling? What are your next steps thereafter? And what I want to get to is the core emotion. I want to sell this property because I'm moving out of the US. I'm going to become an expat and I'm going to live in Puerto Rico, or I'm going to go live in Guatemala, and I need this monkey off my back. I also need the money to get a house in Guatemala. And so it's like, boom, now we're at the core essence of the pleasure. And now that I know that, it's like, okay, it's on the table now. And that's also going to give you ammunition for when you have objections or for when they start pushing back. And it's also going to serve as a way to pre-qualify if this person is even worth your time. Once you've solved lead gen in a business, and lead gen is no longer an issue, the way that you grow revenue and have your sales team perform even better is if they look at 100 leads, what's the needle in the haystack? Where should they be spending their time? Because not all those 100 leads should be treated equal. I see this all the time in land. It's like people are chasing these deals that are ultimately dead ends, either because it's something wrong with the property, but more times than not, something that's with the seller. And so this pleasure, if that pleasure doesn't exist, well, there's probably not a qualified opportunity because we can't really serve the person. Again, this applies to every situation. If someone wants to join Leah and it's just like, yeah, I just want to learn a little bit about land. That's not a compelling vision. It's I want to learn about land so I can build a 6-figure business and leave my job in the next 18 months. And so I can have more time with my family and I can show my kids what it means to live life on your own terms. That's the vision. Not everyone has that though, but you need to try to glean that out of them. The next thing is the pain. Okay. So the pain is a few things. It's like, have you already attempted to do this yourself? So in the example of a seller, it's like, have you tried selling this yourself? Yeah, I did, and it just didn't work. Or I know I just don't have the time. It sounds awful. It's like, have you tried to use a realtor? And I hate realtors. There's a lot of pain there. There's also the pain of like, what happens if you don't do this? So what happens is if you don't sell your property the next 6 months and you move to Guatemala and you don't have the money to build your house, is that going to be a problem? Yeah, it's going to be a problem, right? So I'm trying to also figure out what the pain is. And there's always going to be pain and pleasure for a qualified lead or opportunity, right? It's never just one or the other. At the least, there's going to be the pain of not solving their problem, and we need to shine light on that. But more times than not, there's already pain that they've gone through. That's why they're looking at your solution or whatever it may be. Inside of Leo, we see the pain is I tried doing this on my own, or I went through some other beginner program and I got smoked. I lost money or it didn't work. And now I'm in the hole and I'm not anywhere closer to my vision. In fact, I'm in a place of more pain than where I even started. And if that's not there, say, look at it, we can serve you, right? And this is so true for land. If there is no pleasure, there is no pain there. I just want to figure out what my property's worth. All right, well, I don't think I can help you. Now, the truth is that people bluff, right? People bluff, or people just aren't actually conscious of the pain and the pleasure. So there's a philosophy, I think it comes from Toyota, and I think it really comes from like Japanese manufacturing, which is called the 7 Whys. I believe it's called the 7 Whys. Maybe it's called the 5 Whys. And the premise is it's like, all right, we're building this car and we're going to put the handbrake down here. And it's like, well, why put the handbrake there? Well, do we even need a handbrake? Oh, well, like, what does a handbrake even serve? Like, like you're just digging deeper and deeper and deeper. So a lot of times that sellers or anyone, they're not going to come out of the gate and tell you exactly what it is because they might not even be aware, or they might be holding their cards close to their chest. So you dig deeper. It's a game of asking multiple questions to their answers, and you bury deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. What that might look like is, and I'll use Leah as an example because I think it's a really relevant example. We get folks that are like, yeah, I want to leave my job. Well, why do you want to leave your job? Because I'm just not making enough money there. Well, why do you want to make more money? Well, I want to make more money so I can actually move out of Montana. Well, why do you want to move out of Montana? Because I grew up here and I want to, create a new life for myself. Why do I want to create a new life for myself? Well, I don't want to live in the shadow of my parent. Boom. Like now you're getting to a powerful, powerful kind of root emotion. And even just letting that surface for the prospect, even that in itself is powerful. But when objections come up, we can bring that up and say, well, isn't that important to you? Okay. Pleasure, pain. The next is the tie-in. And it's shocking how many people miss the tie-in. The tie-in is merging this all together and synthesizing what they've told us and giving them a clear yes, no, we can help you. So many folks get this wrong. It's like, yes, we can serve you because what you listed, we can do X, Y, and Z. That's going to get you to where you want to go. Or it's like, no, we actually can't help you. There's real power in telling people no. It will bite you in the ass if you try to force someone to do something that they don't want to do. And there are prospects that are impressionable, and there are salespeople that are powerful and have a big authority, and they're very compelling on calls, and they can get people to do something that they don't want to do in the short term. It does happen, but that is never the right thing to do. It will always come back around and bite you in the ass somehow. And a lot of times it won't even come to the finish line. It might look like someone pays and they want a refund. It might look like the seller signs a purchase agreement and they back out a title. Rarely does it actually come to fruition, but you can inch it along and make it feel like it's going somewhere. And just because something is a no today doesn't mean that it's a no forever. And so there are sellers that it's a no today. And we tell them, hey, I don't think we can serve you. But that doesn't mean that it's going to be a no forever. And so when it comes time for them to sell their property, are they going to call the person that was forthright and honest? Or are they going to call the person that really tried to press the issue and force their hand? No, they're going to call the former party. Like There's real power in telling people no. Okay. Now, if we can help, we need to either demo specific examples, so case studies, or really just kind of dive in and show them exactly the technicals of how we can deliver them to where they want to go. Now, in the case of Leah, it might be like, hey, yeah, I want to make more money. I want to leave Montana. I tried doing it myself. It's not working. It's like, hey, let me show you specific clients or people that were in the same boat as you. And let me show you exactly how we solved it. I'll kind of demo it for you and I'll show you exactly what that looks like. Okay, so that's called the tie-in. Now we're going to move into opening the floor. Now, one thing that's important is throughout this tie-in, I'm going to be confirming with them. Does this sound like this would solve your problem? Is this what you're looking for? Does this make sense? Do you see how this might actually, help you on X, Y, and Z journey? So it is important that I'm getting confirmation. I'm getting buy-in every step of the way, especially in the tie-in. So I'm going to be confirming with them. And again, by this point, there should be a lot of rapport because we've been lobbing softball questions for them, and now they're kind of oozing with honesty. And a lot of folks don't have that place in their life where they can just be forthright and totally open up. And this is where sales can become so powerful. If you actually have a thing that can solve a problem for someone that's an important problem to them, and you can get them to open up and recognize that, and you can present a solution, and they say yes, like that's a powerful thing that just happened there. And a lot of sellers or prospects, they're not going to come to these calls forthright and open, and so you got to kind of ease it out of them, and that can be a really powerful experience for people. That's, to me, that is not unethical. That is not something to be ashamed of. That you're giving someone a platform to be open and honest, where a lot of people, places in life, they can't do that, or they're not doing that. Now, again, we've got to be really, really clear on who we can help and who we can't help. And so you always got to have your integrity there for the yes or the no. Okay. The next is opening up the floor. We're confirming what they're looking for. And then we're going to kind of move over to asking, hey, like, what questions do you have for me? Kind of like fill in the gaps. This is usually when some objections are going to come up. Not all of them, but some of the objections will start to come up from here. If it's like it's a yes on their side, then we're going to move to next steps, and we're going to try to make sure that we get some level of buy-in on that call. Now, in land, that might be, let's get this contract signed, or there might be, let's schedule a call so you and your wife or you and your husband can get on this next call. We can review it together, or I'm going to send the contract. You can review it. We'll hop on a call right after. We always are going to set some kind of next steps. Inside of Leah, might be like, well, do you want to join today? If no, do you want to place a holding deposit? If no, well, then why no? Okay, it's no because you need to talk to your wife. Let's get on a call with your wife tomorrow. We're always creating some kind of next step, and we're trying to get some level of buy-in right there on this call. Again, if we can actually help them. Okay, so that's kind of the general format. Again, this works for every single offer I've ever been a part of in every single industry. The questions change. I don't like live and die by having to adhere to this format perfectly. Sometimes we'll zig and zag a bit, but I'm always thinking about this. And if I'm getting off the rails, it's really important that I pull it back on track. It's also very important that you don't let big personalities control the frame of the call. Okay. You've got to have a stronger frame on these calls. They have to be in your frame. They're in your house. They're on your call. But you've got to have that authority. And to have that authority just means that you're very gentle about it. You're not overbearing. That's not having authority, but you're very gentle to kind of guide things back on track, right? You're tactical about it. So you'll get some prospect sellers or otherwise that get on calls and there's like, yo, show me your offer. How much can you pay me? I'm not interested in a discount offer. It's like, okay, cool. We'll handle that here in a second. And honestly, I think those are really fair questions, but I got some questions for you that I think will kind of inform me on what a fair offer might look like, right? We're going to kind of pull it back on track, do it tactfully, but again, they have to be in your frame. And if you can feel that someone is trying to get you and you're in their frame, the call is essentially lost once you get it back together. Okay. Okay, cool. So that's the general format that we take on every single call. Now, let's talk about some of the minutia here. Again, I'm going to try to make this as relevant for land as I absolutely can. And again, we'll see what happens. I think, again, one of the biggest skills that you need to start to piece together is before your calls, during your calls, and after calls, what are the signals that tell you to continue to spend time with this prospect, right? Again, if you are building a business and it's growing, lead flow should be growing as well. Like, you shouldn't be, your business is suffering if you're constantly like, I don't have enough leads, right? And so I was thinking about like, okay, where do we spend our time? Because in truth, like in the land business, you don't need to close that many deals to have a really big land business. You just need to figure out, how can I find the needle in the haystack that points me in the right direction? So we would do that before the call, during the call, and after the call. Let's talk about some of those signals. Again, these signals are relevant for every industry. They'll be slightly different, but it's relevant everywhere. Let's talk about inland. Some of the first signals that I look at on the front end, okay? To our marketing, how responsive were they out of the gate, right? So if I send a text message, hypothetically, How responsive were they when we were in that text thread? Are we kind of rallying back and forth? How open are they to get on a call? When we add them into our CRM, what's the turnaround time to where they respond to our first touch? We just recently did a meta analysis, and over 80% of our deals in the last 120 days, the prospect in our CRM responded first day, right? That's a really strong signal that you should be spending time with that person. If that person's responding 6 weeks later, it doesn't mean it's a dead deal, but I'm already starting to think qualifications might be a little low here, right? You can say the same thing about the prices that they're asking for. Like, there's a lot of little triggers I'm thinking about on the front end that show me, okay, what's the level of motivation here? And is this a prospect that can actually help? Now, when we're on that call with them, it's like, how open are they? How strong is a pleasure? How strong is the pain? What's their relationship to that asset? When we think about land, do they inherit it? Have they owned it for 50 years? Have they never been there? Those are all little, triggers or signals that I'm looking at. Very much the same thing though for any kind of offer, right? If someone's been bashing their head against the wall for 5 years trying to figure out how to build a land flipping business, all right, like the relationship to it's very different than someone that's 5 weeks in and thinks that they know everything, right? Again, these are little signals that I'm thinking about. And then what happens thereafter? So it's like, what kind of buy-in do we get for next steps? How responsive are they thereafter? How proactive are they to reach out to us? Like, again, I'm trying to marry all these things together to where you could be the best salesperson ever. You could have the most technical swagger on these calls. But if you can't figure out where to spend your time, you're screwed. You're screwed. Like, I've seen subpar acquisition managers create insane pipelines because they know how to spend time in the right places. And over time, you start to build this kind of sixth sense. There's these little subtle triggers, signals that you start picking up from people that are really strong indicators. Like, I can look into someone's CRM and get a pretty good read just by looking at the text thread, the email thread, their initial inquiry, their standing with the property, like how they bought it, back taxes, all those things, to kind of put together a pretty good picture of qualifications or the level of motivation there. Okay. So again, you can be doing everything right, but if you're not assigning where to spend your time correctly, like you're going to be potentially screwed. The next thing is you have to understand that one size solutions do not work for most people. And so when we're putting together deals in land or putting deals together in Leah, like as the name implies, you have to put together a deal, right? And so it's not just one size fits all. I'll buy a property for cash. It's like, hey, this person has got a lease on it. Someone's farming it. The lease ends in 6 months, but it's a handshake agreement. Also, like they don't want to pay a lot in taxes. So maybe they need to owner finance, like all these different variables. And so you got to start to kind of put together bespoke solutions based off people's problems. And if you're just coming onto these calls in the land context and saying, here's my offer, take it or leave it, dude, you're screwed. You're absolutely screwed. And on that note, too, if you haven't gotten permission to make an offer, don't be making an offer. I see and land these folks that are truly robots on these calls. They're trying to act like Chat GPT, where it's like, hey, Bob, hope your day's going well. So I can pay you $45,000 to $50,000 for your property, cash close in 30 days. You want to do business? Yes or no? The seller's like, dude, A, who the heck are you? B, no, you don't even have my permission to make a pitch. And C, that's not even relevant to my problems. And so there will be calls where we don't even make an offer because we don't have the ammunition to feel justified and we don't have the buy-in yet to make an offer. Okay. One of the most important things that I learned is that a tiny percentage of the folks that you ever do business with, no matter what the industry is, are ready to make a decision right now. There's something that says about 3% of all prospects are ready to buy now or sell now, or, whatever the context is. And so when you know that, and when you start kind of picking up these 6 cents pieces from people, you also don't take the fact that they didn't say yes today as like a DQ. I see a lot of folks that misattribute, well, they didn't say yes today, so that's DQ'd and putting that in the back burner. Where if we can develop kind of that 6 cents I was talking about, we can stay in the fight way longer. And we can also have context that very few people are ready to make a decision now. Okay. Let's imagine about 3% of the folks are ready to make a play now inland. They're ready to sell right now. That is a tiny number. And in fact, I don't put that much weight on it. I put weight on all the other things that I spoke about. And so, A, that means that we can't over-index on, well, they didn't say yes today. That also means we can't really expect that. We shouldn't expect that. In fact, you can push too hard and erode a relationship and blow up a deal because you're too eager and you're pushing too quickly. And then the last thing is, if that is true, which it has been very much true in my experience, that means that the real magic is going to happen thereafter. It's going to happen after that call. And so that's why it's really important that we're setting next steps on every kind of interaction that we have. I'm never getting off a call without clear next steps that is spoken to the seller, spoken to the prospect, and that is documented as well. So that's in our CRM or it's on their calendar. That is always documented for them and for us, right? The next step is always very clear. Even if the next step is I'm going to call you back in 6 months because like you got stuff to sort out between now and then. And that also means that we need to get really good at follow-up, right? Really good at follow-up. And part of being great at follow-up is just having visibility. So much of being amazing at sales actually has less to do with like your swagger and your ability on these calls and a lot more to do, again, where you assign your time and the level of visibility that you have on your pipeline and knowing where your time should go every single day. Like, I think that's the greatest decision a salesperson will make. To learn these skills that I'm talking about here, relatively easy. But to have a system that provides that level of visibility and to know where your time should go is not easy. And the problem is if you're a salesperson in an organization, you think, well, that falls on the CEO or the owner. And a lot of times they're not going to do that for you. And if you're the business owner, a lot of times you're not going to do that for yourself. In this business, when I got involved in land in 2019, I was decent at sales. That was one of my strong suits, right? And I wasn't like a technical salesperson. I would just build rapport with people, right? I'd have folks that would leave calls with me and be like, I feel like you're a friend, right? And I would put way too much weight on what happens today and let probably millions of dollars of worth of deals slip through the cracks. I was always playing the game of skimming off that 3% off the top, and everything else was kind of to the wayside and it would drift off into the distance. Or if you look at our business now, like in our land business, the vast majority of the deals that we do, the lead is older than 30 days because we've gotten really good at having visibility and there's always room for improvement. And we've kind of set the standard with folks like that's where the magic happens. And so again, whether you're the one doing sales or you're the owner doing sales or whatever the context is, like understand that you need visibility. You need to know that 6 cents. And you also need to understand that the vast majority of your revenue or your deal flow, your pipeline is going to be generated from folks that are being seasoned in that in your kind of cradle to grave cycle of how a lead starts, right? So freaking important. Now, with that, if we know that to be true, and we know that folks have to go through this sales funnel, right? Everyone thinks about marketing as a funnel, but you also need to think about your sales process as a funnel. If that's true, why are we going to put all of the weight on the salesperson to move that person through the funnel? They need to be accountable for a good chunk of it, but it's also like, can we create content or systems or information that nurtures that person and carries them through? And so for us inside of our CRM, we have, like in our land business, we've got really clear processes that will educate and kind of drip out information over time to nurture them, because a lot of the same stuff is coming up time and time again. And same thing in Leah, right? When someone books a call to join Leah, it's like first thing they get are going to an intro video when they book a call. There's going to be a video between their discovery call and their strategy call. Like, we're trying to allow some of the content that you can create or information that you create or automations that you can create to nurture that person and carry them through that sales funnel, where a lot of folks are thinking about that on the marketing side and they put all of the impetus on the salesperson to do all that heavy lifting. It's like combine forces and allow what you would do on marketing to also apply into your sales funnel, but you're answering way different questions. You're answering questions that would never be relevant from a marketing standpoint, but it makes a lot of sense when someone's in your funnel, right? And so again, now that we know that most of our deals are going to happen 30 days out, so well, what do we do in between there? And we can't put all of that weight on the salesperson. Okay, so really important. All right, let's track this call to a little more on the acquisition side as it relates to land. We'll get a little outside of some like the higher level sales stuff and a little more into the land stuff. If we are an acquisition manager ourselves, where we have an AM in our business, and let's assume that they're doing a good enough job here, it's like, okay, then what do we start grading them on to define their performance and actually define how well they're doing? Because the problem is that, like, if you're just basing the performance of you or your AM team off of revenue, that's a lagging indicator. They could be doing all the things right today and revenue just hasn't caught up yet. So there's other things that I want to look at. Okay, here it is. And this, again, I think this will ultimately apply for every industry, but we'll kind of tailor it to land. Very first thing is, what's our pickup rate? Okay, new lead comes in. How many of those people do we actually get to pick up? Or you could say, for the number of book calls that we have, how many people do we actually get to show up to those calls? That number is always going to be lower than it should. So what can you do, put in place to get that answer rate or that show rate to your calls as high as humanly possible? Imagine that you're getting whatever 70% of new leads in your land business to answer the phone, and that's overall. Let's say that's over a 12-month period, and that might be pretty accurate for most land investors. I'm sure you've received a lead that doesn't pick up the phone and you never get a hold of them. Happens all the time. What systems can we get in place to go from 70% to 90%? That's going to be a blend of manual and some automation to get you there, right? There should be a manual window, and if they don't catch them in the manual window, then they move over to some kind of automated sequence to re-engage them, okay? The next thing is, how wide are we? I see that a lot of folks think about total number of dials, and I agree it's an important metric, but a metric that I like more is total number of individual dials, right? So as you start building a pipeline and you have a lot of leads coming in, I don't want to just see that we're just hammering this tiny little segment and we're triple dialing everyone. And what you'll see is AMs will try to prop their numbers. Well, I made 50 dials today. Yeah, but you only called 15 people. So you see a lot of sales rep that either intentionally or unintentionally prop up their numbers by doing that. So think about, how wide are we going? Now, you can't go that wide in the beginning, so you don't have that wide of a pipeline. But as your CRM grows and new lead flow grows, I want to be going somewhat wide. Now, again, it still has to be going after the right places, but most AMs could probably make 50 to 60 dials a day. I want to see that probably half of those or more are going to individual folks, right? The next thing is, what's our talk time? Very easy to spoof your numbers. And again, sometimes we do this ourselves, right? Even if you're the AM, you can still fool yourself and say, well, I made 50 dials today. I did pretty good. But if you're averaging a 30% pickup rate and your average conversation is 5 minutes, it's kind of meaningless. I'd rather see us make 50 dials to 30 individual owners. Then we get whatever, a 30% pickup rate, but our average call is going to be 20, 30 minutes, right? So I want to see typically 2 to maybe 3.5 hours of talk time on a given day. And so when we get someone on the phone, it's not just a hi, hello, do you want to sell to us? Okay, see you later. It's like, are we actually going deep? Because what we know is the more time that we have with someone talking on the phone, the more likely we are to do business with them, right? When we look at the deals that we do, there's usually a crap ton of talk time. In fact, when we look at the best deals that we do, there's almost always more talk time. Now, that might not just be over one call. It could be spaced out over many calls, but still our average call at bare minimum should be 10 minutes unless they have to reschedule, right? So don't fool yourself personally, or don't let your sales team fool you by having a high number of calls or even having a high number of individual calls. I really want to think about talk time. The next thing is, how many verbal offers are we making? Now, that's part of a marketing function, right? Because if you're getting a boatload of unqualified leads, you just can't make that many offers. So that's partially on marketing side, but I still see a lot of land investors in particular, or people in general, that are way too tight in their kind of offer making funnel. Make more offers. It's that simple. It's really that simple. Like, make way more offers. Offers. So verbal offers. How many verbal offers we're making? How many contracts are we sending? And then what happens after we send a contract? Now, for a different industry, a contract could be sending a checkout link or what have you. And it's like, what happens thereafter? Because again, very few people are going to take you up on it right then and there. Those are really the key indicators that I want to be looking at, that are more of a leading indicator than a lagging indicator. Again, that could be for you personally, or that could be for your acquisition team. That's where I spend a lot of time trying to adjust. Now, I'm assuming this person already has the soft skills, okay? And the soft skills are relatively easy to develop. These technical skills, while they're like quantifiable, a lot of people, it's like out of sight, out of mind. They're not even thinking about these things. And the cool thing about being great at sales is it's both qualitative and it's quantitative, right? It's this weird blend of both. And so you need to have the qualitative skill sets, but you also need to be like having the quantitative, right, the right numbers in the right places. And when you marry that together, it's a gangbusters result. And then it just becomes math. It's just freaking math, man. It's just so simple. More input in the right areas gets you more output of the right things that you want. That's it. All right. It's really just that simple. Now, I think that, like, if you are in land, take that and run with that until the day that you die. It's that. So I've got a friend in land. Some of you guys might know him. His name's Ajay. He has a really interesting kind of framework and concept, which is essentially like, once we make an offer, we're going to keep on following up. I can't remember it, until they sell, until they block us, or until they die, or I don't know, something like that, right? And so if someone has a property that you like, there's some kind of motivation there. I'm going to keep on showing up for all eternity. It really is that simple. Now, again, there are ways that you can actually allow content and maybe marketing to do some of that lifting for sales. The way that might look like for Leah is folks that might get on a call with us, they don't sign up. Well, they might still be watching our YouTube videos, and maybe 5 years later, they say, "All right, you know what? Now I'm ready." And so, in the best case scenario, those worlds can kind of merge together, and you can do that in your land business. You 100% can, right? Could be sending out, really curated text to folks that are in certain markets. Let's say in Texas, right? Let's say there's some kind of inflection point that happens in Texas. You could write a newsletter or write a text or drop them a cold call and whatever. Like there are ways you can merge those two worlds together. It's a little trickier in land, but you can still certainly do it. So I want to think about like how can I just be persistent for all eternity once I verify they're qualified and I got the right property that I am actually interested in pursuing. Now, if you can remove having wrong properties ever coming in your pipeline via scrubbing, like it takes so much work off your team's plate, because the next level of being great at sales is, how would I frame this? What would the word that be that I would use to describe this? Let me take a puff of this cigar. I would describe this as morale. Okay. Sales, in my opinion, no matter who you are, whether you're the one doing the sales and you're the owner of the operator, or you've got a sales team or what have you, like there is a real morale component to sales. Again, I don't care how persistent you are, how motivated you are, how good you are at sales. Morale will undulate. It dips, it ebbs, and it flows. Okay. And what causes that? Well, a string of really crappy properties coming into your pipeline is a great way to erode morale, right? So that's one of the reasons that scrubbing not only saves us money on our marketing and all that jazz, but it shifts the morale of our team because they're taking shots on goal. Because when they get leads, it's like they're not having to DQ the next 10 leads that they get. Same thing when it comes to any kind of offer. Like if I'm putting prospects coming into Leah on our team's plate that are wildly unqualified, it's like we need to have decision walls or blocks to remove those people so we're not reducing morale from our team. And so morale is such a strong component of sales. And what I've seen is that no matter who you are, no matter how proficient you are at sales, morale will always dip. And so the meta skill that we want to develop is how do we shorten those dips? How do we recover faster? It's not so much so that we don't recover from those, or that those dips don't happen, but as we shorten the time in between those dips. And those will happen personally. Those will happen for your team. When you have a team in place, building a company culture where you're gamifying things and it's competitive and it's fun will allow morale to be high. You really want to think about morale almost as morale for a sports team. I feel like that everyone makes the analogy that sales is really a bit of a sport. It is a performance-based sport. And so morale is such an important component. And just like in sports, we are going to be reviewing game tape, whether it's my own calls or calls for our team. We're going to make sure that stuff is out in the open. We're going to make it, again, we're going to gamify it. We're going to keep it really fun. We're going to set challenges and spiffs. And sometimes that challenge or spiff, even if you're the only person in the business, you can still set those incentives for yourself. I remember my first maybe year and a half in the business, I set like a incentive or a challenge for cold calling. I was like, I'm going to cold call for a month straight. I'm going to make 100 dials a day. And if I do, I'm going to reward myself. And I forget what it was. I think it was like a new exhaust for my Ford Fiesta or something like silly like that. And so turning this stuff into games, because again, morale is something that you will, no matter if you're scrubbing your leads or things are perfect, you are going to get hit with dips in morale. And how do we shorten that time in between? How do we gamify it? And humans inherently love games. Ah, man, where else to go from here? In land, and I think in any industry, folks ultimately want the speed and professionalism of a business, but they want the rapport and the connection of working with a Joe Blow. They want the rapport and connection of working with a rare person. I see a lot of folks that confuse this. Either they drop the ball in the speed and the professionalism because they act like blows in their calls. So they're too casual in their process, but they're also casual on the calls, which casual can work on the calls, but it does not work on the front end. It does not work thereafter. If a new lead comes in, we're responding immediately. If a lead signs up, they're getting the resource that we promised them immediately, right? The best case scenario is you have the speed and professionalism as a business. You have the speed to lead that's required. There's a Harvard Business Review study that says if you wait an hour to get in touch with a new inbound lead, if you get in touch with them before an hour, you're 7x more likely to make a connection. Like speed to lead is so important. But the other side is like people are so professional, they're so buttoned up and uncomfortable and weird on these calls, and they're playing this game of defense, and people can read that, right? Again, both in like the nonverbal communication and in the verbal communication, there have been many folks that have a product or service that I like that I simply won't do business with them because I can feel there's something misaligned. They are on defense or they want something from me, and it becomes very aware. So when I'm talking to sellers or I'm doing business with someone, I am so shockingly authentic. And I think in a world where authenticity has been lost in business, that is one of the greatest like superpowers that you can have, but never lose sight of being authentic for applying that to being laissez-faire with everything else. It's kind of this weird blend of the two. And at the end of the day, perhaps the most important thing, it's so hard to prescribe a number one thing, but this very well might be the most important thing. I've seen great salespeople either fail long-term or fail in the short term because their belief in the solution that they're providing dwindles. And so we need to actually believe, and to a deep level, that what we are offering, service, product, or buying land for someone, it can actually serve, it's actually doing good in the world, and more importantly, can serve that person. And if that is outside of that, like, I don't care how good you are at sales, like that will catch up to you. People will either feel it in a nonverbal sense, or your morale will dip so low. You've got to believe that you can absolutely help folks. And when you see that opportunity, you are persistent. When that opportunity does not exist, you call it out and you back the hell off, and you make it very, very clear. And if that belief is lost, I just feel like the game's over. And so you as a business owner need to figure out, how can you keep belief high at all times for your team? Inside of Leah, when we have a win for a Leah member, we share that with our team. We make sure it's known. We reinforce the good that we're doing in the world. Same thing when we get a positive review from a seller because the process was so smooth, or they were able to do ABC with the money that they made, we share that with the team. We make that known. And if I'm the only person on the team and I'm the solo entrepreneur, I also reinforce that with myself. I hype myself up on that. Belief, like, you could be the worst salesperson ever, but if you really believe in your bones that what you're doing is actually providing good in the world, and when you see an opportunity to help someone, you feel it in your bones. It's like, dude, lights out. And I think that's one of the things that has served me. Again, I don't have much formal sales training. Literally, this has been built just through trial and fire. But what I have had is I've never aligned myself with things that I don't believe. And I've never, ever sacrificed getting a sale done for the money or for the accolades in the business when I worked at a W-2, where I knew I couldn't help the person, where I knew it was a bad fit, where I knew it was a short-sighted win that was going to be long-term, something that wasn't going to serve them and something I wasn't going to be proud of. And I've always kept that belief so, so high. Like, I really do think that what we do with Land Insights, what we do with Leah, what we do with our land business, I really do believe that we're doing good in the world. I believe that. And I'm delusional about it, maybe, but I try to pass it off to our team. And I ensure that we never let our integrity misstep. And even something like me showing up shirtless to this call, even though it's such a foolish example, that's me standing in my integrity. I'm not willing to sacrifice who I am to make a buck. And that shows something to my team. And that shows how I do things, and I think that carries over. And so if you're an owner, I think it's really important that you keep that in check. Yeah. Again, I've seen great salespeople burn out or go through massive dips because they've lost sight of their belief. All right, guys, how far are we into this call? Whatever, we're probably 40 minutes into this call. All over the place, really. A lot of energy today. I just had a really, really interesting call before this that was both interesting, powerful, good. I don't know, a lot of things, a lot of emotions felt. So I came charged up with a lot of emotions. I've been talking on meetings for 3 hours before this call. So I apologize if it was all over the place. Hopefully there's at least a nugget or two you can get from it. If there is, smash that like button. Give it a comment. It means the world to me, guys. If you like these videos, subscribe. I'll continue producing content just like this with or without a shirt. Bye, guys.